Okay, I'm gonna pre-warn you now, this video is going to be a bit different. You know, it's not gonna have my usual sporadic, hopefully comedic energy. You know, the editing will be a bit less crazy if there's long spiels, and if the subject matter you don't think is going to interest you, then fair enough. But this is how I want to present this video. Quickly, I'm just going to let you know the situation, then we can divulge why I'm making this video, and then we can get onto the meat and bones. This is probably the type of video, if you want all of the content from this, YouTube is very good at, you know, you can whack things on 1.5, whack things on 2 times. I don't mind. I get it. I'm going to do some waffling, but trust me, we've got a lot to talk about, so I will stop waffling, but there will be waffle. I apologise. I've got to address everything just in case certain people watch this video, because the last thing I want is for me to make this entire video and then certain points are made, one of which being, oh, this is a situation that happened, you know, 3 or 4 days ago, like, why are you dragging this back up now? Like, I'm sorry, I haven't got around to it yet, but this is my opportunity to speak some thoughts. So, one of the biggest YouTubers in the Doctor Who space put out as one of their 3 thumbnails, because if you don't know, YouTube allow you to do multiple thumbnails. So as one of their 3 thumbnails, they put out a thumbnail that, and we'll get into why I personally think it's a pretty not good thumbnail to have out there, but yeah, they put that out as one of their 3 thumbnails, and it created an entire thumbnail, a cacophony of noise. Is that the right word? Probably. From a lot of people. And I'm going to say now that YouTuber is Mr Tardis, and there was not only him confronting a lot of other people, but there was a big confrontation with me and him, and there was a lot of other drama about it. You can follow me and find a lot of the stuff on mine and his Twitter and a couple of other people's Twitters. If you'd like more context, I will try and screenshot some, you know, tweet screenshots as they come up and as are relevant, to try and give you guys much context as possible. And this is also the appropriate moment to go, Mr Tardis and his thumbnail brought this conversation up, but this has happened with other people. A lot of this stuff will be focused on that specific thumbnail, because that's what's brought this conversation up and is one of the more egregious examples we've seen. But me, and hopefully you guys in the comment section, and if honestly, I don't think he'll watch this, which is completely fine. He doesn't have to, but you know, this is, as I've said, this is me trying to get my thoughts out there. But again, I don't want anyone to get any hate over little bits, or, you know, cause any more arguments. I just think it's important to be honest and authentic, because there's a lot of politics going on about this, and some politics that's a bit nefarious, and some politics where people are having genuinely interesting debates, but those debates got lost in slanging matches. And that's why I want to say, you know, we're going to try and keep this as nice and respectful as possible whilst being honest. Because, and I've got to address this point, because otherwise it could get thrown against me, and that's the last time I'll hopefully have to say that, but that's why I am addressing everything in such minutiae, just in case one point of this gets nitpicked. I, and others, but I will say me, and the reason why I've set this up to try and, you know, be a bit politer about the situation, is because on Twitter, in the debate, there are points where I was probably guilty of not taking, you know, trying to be argumentative rather than informative. Because I still agree with a lot of the points that I am making, but it can be argued on both sides of this and other debates as part of this, is that there was emotional arguments being put forward that we you know, actively, you know, trying to like slur the other person in you know, things weren't being kept polite. So, and I admit I am guilty of that, in case that's thrown at me. This is going to be a fun video, we can tell. So first things first, here is the thumbnail in question. And again, just to add context, this was one of 3 of the thumbnails you use, because YouTube, you can like try like 3 thumbnails and like, you know, see which ones do better and worse in the YouTube algorithm. And it is also important for those that don't know that I say this, that this thumbnail isn't the current thumbnail, and it got deleted within a few hours of being a thumbnail. The reasoning for that being that it wasn't doing well, according to Mr Tardis. That thumbnail was performing the least well, which we can get onto. Now, for context, it's important for you guys to know the obvious reasons behind the thumbnail and where I stand on the thumbnail, because obviously the thumbnail as a blanket thing, I pretty wholeheartedly disagree with. Not only is it done in quite a... The best way I can describe it is a null zone-y style thumbnail. Null zone being, you know, one of like the more noisy voices of the anti-woke brigade. But obviously the thumbnail itself, and people can argue their ways round it and going, this wasn't the intention, this or that. As you can see from the thumbnail, we've got, you know, the start of the Hooniverse in William Hartnell, and then you go to the end of the thumbnail and it's Shooty Gatwa, and the flag on that end is burning with the text reading, how to kill an icon. Which, obviously, I know that's not Mr Tardis. Mr Tardis doesn't believe that a black doctor and the BBC and Doctor Who currently being woke has killed Doctor Who. I know he doesn't believe that, but that is what the thumbnail is implying. And this part is pretty undebatable. Mr Tardis does know who he is targeting with those kinds of thumbnails. In one of the early tweet exchanges, I did say, let's be honest, you're clever enough to know who you're attracting with that thumbnail, to which he said, yes, I'm aware. Now, again, this is such, like, it's a bit of a wanky thing to say, but if you want the full context, you do have to watch the whole video, because this... I kind of have to jump around certain bits to make sure I hit every point, but I get that doesn't make for the most cohesive viewing experience, because there are many things to talk about. Now, in all fairness to Mr Tardis, he doesn't say this himself, but others have in defence of him, so it's worth addressing. People using the comment of YouTube is a game and all of this kind of stuff, and, you know, you've got to do bits of clickbaiting and bits of this and bits of that. And that, in itself, I totally agree with. I have been very guilty of clickbait and this and that, and honestly, 3 or 4 years ago, I have made videos that I have since taken down with bad thumbnails and bad intentions for clickbait reasons. But obviously the difference here is we are using a thumbnail that has racist connotations. Now, obviously, Mr Tardis didn't use this defence himself, in which case I really think he would be down a bad argument and a bad rabbit hole, but that argument I'm just not going to take. The argument of, oh yeah, I'm using a thumbnail that I consider racist to play the YouTube game. No, I'm sorry. If I'm honest, I don't think that's a debatable point. Clickbait, it's YouTube. I get it. A bit of clickbait is chill. But using racism as clickbait to play the YouTube game? No, I'm not accepting that as a valid reason. Now, the slightly bigger part of this is the idea that we need to converse with the the easiest way to phrase this is the anti-woke brigade, because that's the only way of changing their minds instead of speaking down to them all the time. And this brings me on to my big point that a lot of the defences that have been made around this thumbnail relate to the video. People saying things like YouTube is a video site, not a, gallery of pictures. In one of his big tweets after he blocked me, Mr Tardis says, "So much of this faux outrage makes a lot more sense once you realise that there are people who genuinely loathe the idea of trying to change people's minds." Now, the problem is, things get twisted to the point where I think he's arguing against the point, certainly that and fair enough, I'm not responsible for the arguments other people make, but I'm not responsible for those arguments. This is the moment where I tell you, and I did say this on Twitter after I was blocked, I watched the video, and it's a genuinely great video. Mr Tardis has claimed that videos like this, and certainly past videos he claimed, have helped, he believes have helped change people's minds. And honestly, I don't know enough about that to know if that's true or not. But the problem is, all of the defences have been about the video. And in my book, the video itself doesn't need defending. We're talking about the thumbnail and the morals between whether that thumbnail justifies what you're trying to say. Because I think the idea of changing people's minds and talking to people to see how they feel and see if we can change the way people think is a great idea. I 100% subscribe to the idea that if you got to a Reform voter and say, "Fuck you, you're a dickhead," compared to if you go up to them and, try and talk to them about their views on immigration and, whether they're true and talk them through other political parties. Obviously, it's quite an odd conversation to have. But I understand 100% and fully agree that person B is going to have more luck. And that is almost definitely the case even if you tone down example A or tone down example B. Those examples still stand. But the problem is, I don't think a video justifies a thumbnail and vice versa. First of all, a big point is people see thumbnails and don't click on videos. We do live in this echo chamber of the online world where the anti-woke people can see thumbnails like that and not necessarily click on them, but, then further gain this idea that people are on their side and this is what everyone believes, and it further amplifies their opinion. But I also don't think the ends justify the means. Statement A is true. The video is not only a genuinely good video, but if someone who is anti-woke watched it, their minds genuinely could be changed. Statement B, a thumbnail with racist connotations that will especially appeal to the anti-woke brigade isn't a justification for a good video. And let's just go back and clarify. I'm not saying anything controversial. Mr Tardis himself knows that it's provocative and controversial. He genuinely hasn't admitted the race connotations, but if you're admitting it's provocative and controversial, you understand. So I don't think there's an argument to be had whether you think it is racist or not. The fact is, if someone anti-woke sees that thumbnail, they can believe it has racist connotations. Because remember, we can't live in this world where you say something and someone else takes it differently and you go, "Well, that's not how I meant it." We have to think about what we do and what we say and how other people perceive it. We can't only be judged on how we perceive our own actions, because then we're all pretty damn perfect all the time. I think there's many things you can say about this argument, is that I don't think the ends justify the means. I don't think, stooping yourself to the level of a thumbnail with racist connotations is less of a negative than going, yeah, but we might change some people's minds. Because, and as I will try and keep hammering home, I agree with the idea that changing people's minds is important and helping them think, and is so much better than just going, no, 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 you're wrong. But we can't stoop to their level to try and entice them into that conversation. Look, it's a complicated thing to talk about because there are things that are being done with what is being claimed to be good intentions. I'm just not sure that you can use bad intentions for those good intentions. This is also the point where I get into speculation. I don't want to accuse anyone of doubt or like downright say anything. I just think it needs to be put out in the open. This is the point where I need to make two caveats. Firstly, it's important for me to say, whilst I make this point, that for this specific video, I will not monetize this video. If ads are running on this video, it is YouTube making the money, not me. I will never monetize this video. And secondly, if there's nuances that Mr Tardis or someone else who really feels strongly about this would like to explain, let's have a chat about it. Let's have a debate. We can, you know, do a little podcast on this channel, or we can do a Twitter space. Let's have a more open and honest conversation about this rather than the slanging matches that I believe if I'm saying this, Mr Tardis stooped to a similar level and others stooped to, and that's not productive. So let's have the productive space. I don't think we can say we can have this whole, oh, we really need to, you know, try and speak to anti-woke people and try and, you know, change their minds instead of shouting at them, but then in the same argument shout people down and not listen to them and not respect opinions. I think it works both ways. Because one of the things that me and Mr Tardis really got into in terms of a debate is, if he feels the way he does about this thumbnail, why was it taken down? To put this into context, in a tweet, which I'll then put up, his tweet says, the thumbnail in question was only getting 18 to 20% of the views, so I removed it. This is where things get murky for me. Because it's easier just to say this outright than dance around this kind of thing. Either you are putting up this thumbnail to this specific thumbnail because you know it's going to attract the anti-woke brigade, unlike the other two thumbnails that you've done, or, obviously, as he said, this thumbnail is provocative and is designed to be provocative compared to the other two thumbnails, and that thumbnail specifically is designed to attract those anti-woke style null zone people. Yet, if that was the altruistic motive, why take it down when it's not doing well? If this is, like, you know, the main idea behind the thumbnail, surely the views behind it don't matter, because that thumbnail is designed, the YouTube algorithm knows who it's appealing to, because the other two thumbnails, certainly compared to thumbnail 3, aren't designed to drag in the anti-woke audience. The third one is. So if the point of the thumbnail is to drag in that kind of audience, why take it down? Or, and again, you've got to say it, because otherwise I don't understand why it was taken down, and again, I'm more than happy to have a reasonable conversation about it, but was it because, oh, this was an idea to get more views for the video, and it didn't work, so it was taken down? And obviously, as we've said, if it's clickbait to get the anti-woke brigade in to change their minds, there's a debate to be had around that, where I am on the side of, no, I disagree with that usage. But if we're getting to the point of that thumbnail is being used for views, then I'm against it. Of course I'm against it, just like I'm against it with, you know, at the start when we talked about, you know, you know, clickbait, using racism for clickbait in general. To summarise, I don't think you can have your cake and eat it. The other two thumbnails do not drag in the type of audience you said you wanted to drag in with the video. Therefore, either, even with the controversy, you leave it up because that's your opinion and you want to drag in those types of viewers, or you take it down because there's views at stake and it's not doing as well for the channel. But therefore you've lost the altruistic argument because the first two thumbnails don't drag in that same audience in the first place. The other account that I would like to talk about is Jean-Luc and his opinions. You might not know his account, but I think he had some... He was slightly stronger on Twitter and in some worse ways, I think. Firstly, saying things like subversive thumbnails in particular have been a thing on this site for decades. They lure you into a wider discussion, in which case a fairly level-headed breakdown of the current state of television in the UK. Going on to say, YouTube is a job like any other, so can we stop demonising its creators for literally playing the game? Firstly, subversive thumbnails are one thing, thumbnails with racist connotations are another. Secondly, there's a difference between playing the game with a little bit of clickbait and having a racist thumbnail. Yes, a video speaking about Doctor Who then and now and how the British TV industry is burning due to Tory neglect. As I said, and this is my personal opinion, some people have a problem with the video. That's their argument that they are more than entitled to make. My problem is with the video, not the thumbnail. The thumbnail doesn't justify the video, and I don't actually think that point has been addressed by anyone. This is also a big one. It's so baffling to me that people don't understand that YouTube is a video platform and not just a collection of little pictures. Firstly, that little picture is a racist picture that someone has to have made, therefore bad, but just in the same way that YouTube isn't just pictures, YouTube isn't just videos. Those thumbnails are things that exist that people see. You can't use a video to justify a thumbnail. As I said, some people don't watch a video but see a thumbnail. Some people only watch one way through the video. Some people will be validated by this thumbnail. And even if no one is validated by this thumbnail, that doesn't make it okay. You can't make a thumbnail with racial connotations and then go, it's alright, no one was validated by it. It's still a scummy thing to do, in my opinion. Hello everyone, this is James in editing. Look, where we were going to go to in this video was a discussion and a look between like the specific tweets between me and Mr Tardis, like all of the interactions, which you are more than welcome to go find on Twitter if you fully like to see it. But what I found when looking back at it is not only because, obviously, you know, I was trying to address the whole situation, I've already discussed a lot of those points in the main bulk of the video, so I'm just going to quickly summarise some extra thoughts about the specific exchange and, you know, the being blocked and all of that jazz. And, you know, I think it's important to start off by saying I don't think this was a healthy exchange from either of us. You know, there were comments being thrown out about, you know, early on, oh, I'm trying not to be condescending and things like that weren't helping. But then I will admit, I also bit back at points when I shouldn't have done. You know, comments like, the silence is deafening, isn't the most productive way forward. And that's what we want, is a productive conversation, which, fair enough, I don't think either of us facilitated. I'd honestly say 80% of the stuff we actually discussed is the idea around deleting the thumbnail and the idea of going, well, either you were doing this to, you know, speak to anti-woke people, but then you took it down. That was 90% of what we spoke for, and honestly, it just went round in circles and wasn't very productive, because I think obviously the other thing that was being used as defence is the video, and as I've said, I don't think the video justifies the thumbnail. There were little things in the interaction that were personally annoying to me, like the idea of, obviously, you know, as I've said, the comment was a little bit bitey, but this idea of, you know, there seemed to be a bit of an outrage that I'd, you know, called him out for not responding, when he was genuinely responding to other people at the time, but not me, and, you know, I genuinely understand how that in context can come across, you know, oh, I wanted a response and I didn't get it, but it felt like, you know, I was putting across some pretty serious things. So it was interesting that he was responding to the people who he could quite easily respond back to and go, oh no, it's, you know, this is a good video. Again, the conversation was always being turned away from the thumbnail. And the comment he made before he blocked me was quite weird, because first of all, I think if you want to block someone, fine, but I do genuinely think it's an arsehole move to tweet some last thing to someone and then straight away block them as, you know, a little last word tactic is just a bit of an arsehole move. But this idea of, oh, if you're going to keep this going, like what's the point, kind of thing, and you're thinking, well, you know, we're having this important debate, the questions aren't getting answered, hence why I'm going to keep going and keep probing to see if we can get a proper answer, because, you know, this is some serious thing. This isn't just oh, you thought this episode of Doctor Who was bad, I thought this episode of Doctor Who was good. Like, no, we are talking about serious things, hence why it's important to keep addressing it. So this idea that, oh, why did you keep this going if you're not gonna... It was basically saying along the lines of, you know, if you just wanted to keep arguing, why have you kept this going? Like, at the end of the day, me and Mr Tardis don't have to agree with each other. I just found it a bit of a weird thing to say. Look, honestly, I think 90% of me thinks this is the last we'll hear about this situation, and honestly, I don't actually think Mrs. Tardis will watch this video. And honestly, that's chill, because this video was a lot for my peace of mind, because it's, you know, something that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days, and, you know, certainly after the big Twitter thing, wanted to put my words out there. If Mr. Tardis does watch this and either fancies another chat or setting the record straight, if we fancy doing, having a proper chat about it, look, I'm down for that. If nothing happens, that's the thing. The baseline is, if nothing else happens from this video, I'm chill. I've already got a positive result, because I feel like, you know, I've had my say in the forum that I know best of how to have my say. If an extra conversation can come out of it, because, you know, I think, as we both learned, you know, conversations like that in a heated Twitter kind of way don't do any good. So if there is a positive to come of it, maybe there can be a more positive discussion in the future, I'm down. But either way, I'm happy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sitting through this. And the other thing, and the most important thing to say is, now it's addressed, we can go back to some fun, happy content, because I hate that we've had to do this kind of, you know, deal with this negative situation, because we're in such a positive right now. People are so focused on, like, the cancellation that they are really letting the whole fact that we're getting an amazing season of Doctor Who currently, and we should be enjoying it. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in another video. Awkward nod at the end.